Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from 1-income-5975. AITA for calling off my wedding because of how my fiancé reacted to my transgender friend. I, 27M, met my best friend, V, 28M, during one of our later years in college. I never knew him pre-transition, and he completely passes. It probably helps that he was fairly androgynous pre-transition, but the point is that he hasn't been misgendered in nearly a decade. My fiancé has met him multiple times. They've never been close, but there have never been any issues either. My fiancé recently found out V is trans and has been weird, asking me not to hang out with him alone, making faces when I mention inviting him over. I tried to give her some time to adjust, even though there's nothing to adjust to, but the behavior continued. Last night, I finally asked her what the deal was. And she said she thought it was really weird I was so invested in hanging out with, essentially a guy with a vagina, and that she didn't sign up for a partner who was best friends with a woman. The whole conversation made me sick to my stomach, and I truthfully don't feel comfortable around her anymore. She has never expressed bigoted views in the past, or else we never would have made it this far. Our wedding is 2 months away, and I told her this morning that I don't think it's going to happen. I know I'm doing what's best for me, but even that felt because I feel like she's going to use my reaction to justify her views. AITA. OP is not an AH for calling off his wedding after his fiancée expressed transphobic views toward his best friend. He handled the situation maturely. Her disrespectful and dehumanizing language toward his friend was a major red flag. As for scores, I would rate OP's fiancé 3.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Mammoth_Mission_818. AITA for kicking an autistic child out of my restaurant for misbehaving? My name is Gina, 55F from upstate New York, and I run a family-owned pizzeria. My husband and I have been in the service industry for decades, and over the past few years, we've noticed a huge increase in rude customers, rude children, and a crazy level of entitlement. One of the rules we have in our restaurant is that nobody is allowed to talk on speakerphone, play music out loud, or have anything playing on speaker from a personal device. This is such a simple request and something that has always been the standard. This was not even an issue or something that needed to be said before the pandemic. But now it seems parents feel attacked if their children cannot watch Bluey at a volume. We have signs up asking people not to do this, and we do enforce this rule, politely but firmly. A few weeks ago, a woman was sitting with her 9-year-old son, who was watching cartoons on his tablet at full volume, while also scrolling TikTok on a phone. I nicely explained to the woman that we do not allow this, as it is disruptive to other customers, and asked her to please turn off the volume. The woman rudely replied that her son has both ADHD and autism, so he needs to do this to sit down without making a fuss. I asked if she could please use headphones, and she snapped that her son does not like to use them. I told her that this is not acceptable and to please either use headphones or set his devices to silent. About 10 minutes later, I was in the kitchen and heard loud banging noises coming from the dining room. I came out to find the child furiously banging his fists on the table while the mom just sat there ignoring it. It was almost as if he was waiting for her to say something, but she did nothing. I asked her to please stop him, and she replied that he is on the spectrum and this is just his normal behavior if he doesn't have a device to calm him down. The boy then stood up and started running around my restaurant, punching and kicking the other tables and chairs, and knocking things over. Another customer yelled at the mom to control your kid or I will. She launched into what sounded like a pre-rehearsed monologue about how autistic children deserve to occupy the same spaces as everyone else. I agree with this, but everyone still needs to behave appropriately. I told the woman that if she could not get her son's behavior under control that she needs to leave. She was furious and started yelling about how it is illegal to discriminate against people who are on the spectrum and that she would report me. My husband came out, put her food into a Togo box, and just said to her, "Get out right now." She looked genuinely shocked and said that kids should not be expected to just sit quietly and that the world needs to be more accepting of those who are different. I love kids. My husband and I raised 5 of them, even one with special needs. But autism or not, Nothing gives you the right to behave this way in any setting. If your child's issues are so severe that simply sitting in a restaurant without a device makes them freak out and throw a tantrum, then maybe reconsider taking them there in the first place. I'm tired of rude kids and lazy parents who embolden them to behave this way, refusing to discipline them or set any kind of rules or boundaries. This is not about ADHD, autism, or any other condition. This is about entitlement, bad parenting, and bad behavior as a result. Am I the AH? OP is not an AH. She enforced reasonable rules to maintain a respectful dining environment and handled the situation professionally despite escalating behavior. As for scores, I would rate the autistic child's mother 2.5, and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from Top-Type 1839. AITA for deciding to live with my dad full-time because I don't want to help with a bunch of kids at my mom's house. My parents got divorced when my older sister died 8 years ago. I, 16M, struggled with it because one day my sister was gone, and then so was my family. Mom moved out, and she and my dad fought. Mom wanted me with her. Dad felt I should spend time with both. When they went to court, my parents were given the same custody time with me, and I've always had a week with each of them at a time. 5 years ago, my mom remarried. Tom's the guy she married, and Tom had 2 kids under 4 when they met. He and my mom had 2 more kids together. It was pretty chaotic, and my mom and Tom pushed for me to be a helper with the kids and to choose to be their big brother. Mom told me to take care of them like my sister took care of me. And she was always correcting me for saying half-sibling or step-sibling. We had lots of fights about it. I love my mom a lot, but I think we had different ways of coping with my sister's death. She wanted to move forward with Tom and the kids being our family, the same as Dad and my sister were. She hated that I didn't call Tom's dad. And she hated when I'd go for Dad's parenting time. She tried to get sole custody a few times. I couldn't ever see my stepfamily the same. They could never take that same place for me. I was never going to call someone else Dad either, or stop being Dad's kids, because she wanted me to pretend with Tom. I think I never got beyond accepting that they were there and tolerating the fact that my mom's family had moved on and that I had half and step-siblings. I never really bonded with them. But I was kind and I didn't take my issues out on them. Tom's ex died in February, and my mom and Tom decided to take in her other kids, who are similar in age to my half-siblings. Because of all the changes, it meant I was supposed to share with 3 other kids. My mom wanted me to step up and help and be a good older brother and role model. She said the new boy would need me the most, and I'd need to take him under my wing. My mom and Tom told me I'd need to help out with the kids more, too. Like walking some to school, helping with homework, walking them to after-school clubs, and stuff like that. I was also supposed to babysit because a babysitter would be out of their budget. It was all way more than I wanted to do, so I asked Dad if I could live with him, and he said yes. My dad's lawyer said it was fine because the court order already covered me getting to choose once I was 16, and how calls would be all that would be needed to not risk custody going to Mom if she fought it through the courts. So, I call my mom and accept calls from my mom twice a week. She's always so angry when we talk. She told me she was disappointed in me repeatedly and wanted to have a good reason why I was refusing to spend any time at her house. I told her I didn't want to help with all those kids. Mom corrected me and said my siblings, and I told her no. Not my siblings. I told her we'd argued before about that, and I didn't want to. She told me we argue because I won't let go and accept that my family has changed, and she told me now I was being extra selfish and hurting the 4 siblings I always had, and refusing to even try and be there for the 3 new ones. She told me family comes together at times like these, and I ran away. She told me that if she could love them all and move on from my sister's death, then so could I. It pissed me off and I ended the call and I redirect any conversation now to talk about other stuff. But my mom still makes it clear she doesn't like that I went from living with Dad 2 weeks a month to 4 weeks a month, and she only gets calls and no visits, and the kids will grow up hardly knowing me. AITA. OP is not the AH. As a 16-year-old dealing with grief, change, and emotional overload, OP has every right to choose a stable, less burdensome environment. The expectation to parent or heavily support 7 children, some of whom are not even directly related, is unreasonable. So, I would rate OP's mom 2.5, and OP 0 out of 5 on the scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Skip Piley Doo Dee Doo. AITA for ignoring my dad's ex-wife and skipping Mother's Day plans because she was invited? My dad and his ex-wife, Bella, divorced 2 years ago. I, 16M, was dad's only kid from before. They had 3 kids together, but only 2 are living. One of my half-siblings was stillborn. Bella never adopted me, though she wanted to and I didn't, and I never called her my mom or anything, so she never got any custody or visitation with me in the divorce, and I don't have a relationship with her anymore. I didn't want one, and my dad has supported my choice. But my grandmother, my dad's mom, does not support it. She has encouraged me to go back to being Bella's baby because she said she loved me like a mom should and was a better mom than my mom could ever be. Some background stuff would be good here. My grandparents never liked my mom. My grandmother was the worst of all. Mom was a foster kid with a rough background, and she didn't have the easiest life ever. It broke up my parents when I was 4 or 5 years old. My dad admits even today that it was his biggest regret because he always loved my mom. My grandfather softened to my mom after the divorce, and especially after she died when I was 6. My grandmother never softened, and she set my dad and Bella up. They got married when I was 7. And my grandmother and Bella tried to make me warm up to Bella and start calling her mom. I know Bella did love me. It wasn't just to make others happy. I think she saw me as hers because she quit her job when she married Dad and tried to be a stay-at-home mom. It was easier for her when my half-siblings were born because I never liked her that much. I didn't want another mom, and I still don't appreciate that she was influenced by my grandmother so much. My dad never let her adopt me, and that caused problems in their marriage. She knew my dad still loved my mom, so that was another strain. Then the fact I always kept her at a distance and didn't even warm up to her when my half-sibling was stillborn, it all got too much for she and my dad divorced. I don't miss having her around. I'd say my life got better after the divorce. I no longer had to stop myself from rolling my eyes when she'd call herself my mom, and I didn't have to make myself be nice to her. She wasn't in the house and I didn't have to see her, so I didn't. She tried to get shared custody and even tried to talk to me since the divorce, but I ignore her. I blocked her number on my phone and I made my social media private so she can't see it or friend me. My grandmother hates it. She told me that Bella came from a good family and had so much more to offer than my mom ever could have, and if she was any sort of person at all, to quote my mom, my grandmother believes my mom would have wanted me to have better than her, and my grandmother has said that to my face. My dad kicked her out for saying it. Dad and I found out the Saturday before Mother's Day that my grandmother had invited Bella to the Mother's Day hangout. Dad wanted to see the kids, so he went, but I didn't, and I got a lot of shit for it. Bella was upset and felt like I could have at least accepted being around her when everyone else was there. My grandmother came over Monday afternoon when my dad was working, and she told me I should not be avoiding the woman who's been my mom for most of my life. She told me I'd regret it one day and to imagine if she died like Mom did. I told her I wouldn't care. I told my grandmother I don't miss Bella, and I like my life better without her in it. She was still yelling at me when Dad came home, and he kicked her out. Then for most of yesterday my grandmother was giving Dad shit about my choices. AITA. OP is not an AH. He has a right to set boundaries and protect his emotional well-being, especially when it comes to someone he never viewed as a mother. Bella's involvement was pushed by others, particularly the grandmother, who continuously disrespected OP's late mother and ignored his feelings. So, I would rate OP's grandmother 2.5, and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from Silent Swarm In. AITA for telling my sister that if she hadn't lied to her daughter, then her daughter wouldn't be hurting? This happened Saturday when my family was gathered for a pre-Mother's Day dinner. My sister was complaining about her husband's 2 kids, 19 and 20, and how her daughter, 9, was heartbroken that neither step-sibling would give her the time of day, let alone acknowledge her as a sister. She told me my mom and our other 2 sisters that her daughter had so much excitement to have older siblings, and it was crushed, and her daughter was a shell of the kid she was. My mom suggested getting her in to see a child psychologist and maybe explaining that they aren't actual siblings and how that might help. My sister told her she would do no such thing, that they are real siblings because they are blended through marriage and not accepting that is on the part of the kids. I told my sister if she hadn't lied to her daughter for more than a year, then maybe her daughter wouldn't be hurting today. My sister went the route of who asked you, and my mom and sister said she was venting to us and we were trying to help. And that ultimately, I was correct. Mom said there could be some sadness but not like my niece feels right now. My sister said I was being a judgmental For those wondering the background, my sister was a single mom to her daughter for 5 years when she met her husband. Her husband had lost his wife 18 months previously. They dated for more than a year before my sister decided she wanted to meet his kids and see how they'd take to blending families. She told everyone at the time she didn't want to bring her daughter into a family that wouldn't embrace her. Her husband's kids were extremely angry that their dad was dating and with someone else. They hated my sister and refused to even talk to her. My sister decided there was hope, and she told her daughter she was seeing someone and he had kids and she'd have an older brother and sister and they'd be a family. How her siblings were almost grown, but that meant sleepovers, and they'd drive her places and be able to bring her to do cool stuff. She was told over and over by my sister that these two would adore her. This went on for several months before everyone met and moved in together, and then my sister married her husband. Her husband's kids did not want to know my niece, and they rejected any kind of relationship and moved out as soon as they possibly could. She lived with them for a short period. But she had hopes, and she got attached despite them wanting nothing to do with her. Now she's feeling that rejection, and she's withdrawn, she cries a lot, and she has asked almost everyone why her brother and sister didn't want her and how she always wanted a sibling. It's been over a year, and this is still upsetting her. She hears her stepdad talk to his kids, and they never want to speak to her. He tried to bring her along to spend time with his kids, and his kids left the second they saw that she was with them. He stopped that once he realized it was making things worse. But my sister has decided it's all her husband's kids' fault, and how could they do that when her daughter is their sister now whether they like it or not? She ignores the fact that she met them to see how they'd take it, saw they didn't want the situation, and still promised her daughter's siblings. Back on Saturday, my sister left with her husband and daughter because she was mad at us. She told me I only tried to make her feel like shit, and it wasn't helpful. And she said I owe her the biggest apology for blaming her for any of this. AITA. OP is not an AH. She pointed out a hard truth. Her sister set up her daughter with unrealistic expectations about a blended family without considering or preparing for rejection. The hurt the niece feels is a result of the sister's false promises, not OP's honesty. As for scores, I would rate OP's sister 2.5, and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Slamber 1. AITA for telling others about the family therapist firing my dad and his wife? My mom died when I was 11. My dad remarried last year. I didn't like it, and I acted up. I still don't like it, full disclosure. But I was a terror and made life harder for them. I felt like dad betrayed me and my mom by marrying again, and so fast too, but my biggest thing was they expected her to slot right in like she was suddenly my parent too, and someone who got to make decisions for me. It was things like giving me new chores, telling me how to dress and what I should eat, where I should and shouldn't go, trying to make me explain my homework to her, and expecting me to let her review it. Shit like that I hated, and I would get so mad that I'd scream at her. And at Dad when he backed her up. So, I'd sneak out, I was rude to them, I wouldn't listen to her, and other stuff like that. My dad tried talking to me. But he talked to me before he met her, too. He made promises about how it would be just us until I was ready to move out. He promised me he needed a lot of time before he could think about dating again because he loved my mom so much. Then he's already dating someone and they're getting married, and I was still 15 and couldn't just leave. And not only that, but he was acting like she was now my parent, too. I felt like that wasn't fair. Hell, date and keep her from moving in, but they had talked about how she'd be a parent once she moved in because they were on the same page with that stuff. When things were getting so bad that Dad was worried, I'd run away, and I considered it, and I stayed out all night sometimes. He told us we needed family therapy. Strike one in family therapy was my dad, and his wife refused the therapist's suggestion of each of us getting solo sessions too. They just wanted the group sessions. Strike two was the way they would talk over me when I was asked what I would be okay with or would like to see. The therapist said if me, the teen, could listen then so could they. Strike 3 was Dad arguing back against the therapist and his wife calling her useless. Dad said she was not giving good advice and that he didn't need to consult me on who could and couldn't come into our home or help him parent me. He said he didn't care if he sounded like an ass to me, but he had decided his wife was deserving of equal respect and authority. Strike 4, which was the final strike, was they refused to compromise. I already had. I stopped being so disrespectful and getting into so much trouble. I did ignore my dad's wife a lot because I couldn't handle talking to her with how she talked to me, but I wouldn't go anywhere without asking or stay out all night, and I didn't call her and I stopped calling her names. But they refused to discuss her not being my parent. The therapist even told me if she got them to agree it would be re-evaluated and discussed more over time. That she might end up with some parental-like authority eventually. But they said she was staying my parent and they weren't willing to discuss it. They told the therapist she was meant to make me get on board with that. So, the therapist told them they were wasting her time and she wouldn't see us all anymore. She did say she'd continue to see me since I worked with her, but my dad said no way, and so none of us are going back. They're pissed that she fired them. I found it hilarious. I told my friends, I told different family members, I told a neighbor who Dad would tell all our shit to before. And my dad hates it. He told me I'm trying to humiliate them, and it's business, not public. I told him if he could tell people our business, then so could I. He told me I was enjoying it too much. Then we got into another fight. But hey, I just went into my room instead of sneaking out. Dad and his wife are blaming me because Dad's side of the family are giving them shit for getting fired from therapy. AITA. OP is not an AH. She is dealing with a tough family situation and feels unheard and disrespected, while her dad and stepmom refuse to compromise or engage properly in therapy. As for scores, I would rate OP's dad 2.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comments section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.